what happens is if you start making a lot of mistakes, yes, you learn from them. The problem is, can you recover from them? Because if you
Right.
make a lot of mistakes early on, it's a very difficult hit on the
Toast.
reputation. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the biggest mistake, and without getting too specific in the actual mistake, is
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Court Pro podcast, where we encourage and equip you with everything you need to start and grow a thriving court business to fuel your family's vision. Every episode, you'll hear interviews, trainings, and conversations revolving around the hard and soft skills of athletic court construction and surfacing, plus some bonus tips on how to grow as a father as you run your business. My name's Joe, and I'm a husband and father of 4 kids. I was able to bring in $300,000 of revenue in year 1 of my surfacing business and over $1 million in year 2. This business has blessed my family tremendously, and I'm super excited to help you guys, other hardworking dads, create a true economic engine for your own family. If you'd like to learn more about what entering into a season of court business coaching might look like for you, visit courtprocoaching.com to see more details about our exclusive content and community of fellow court installers across the country. Let's jump into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am here with my friend Brent Poss. Brent, you are a living legend in the pickleball world. I know you're going to be, humble about it, but you are a true voice in our industry. So thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to jump on.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, super excited. So Brent runs you're the president of CourTex. Maybe you could just talk about that really quick, just kind of present day. What's your day to day? And then maybe touch on what's going on in the Facebook group.
Okay. So I am the president of CourTex Construction. We are a court building company that does both residential and commercial. We cover a large chunk of Texas. It's a large state. And so the challenge there is not overextending too much, but letting folks know that you can have a reach. I do also run the Backyard Pickleball Facebook page, which is a whole kind of a different subject, but it's a national,
another full-time job.
It feels that way. It really does. I mean, it's a full-time, like, keeping track of what's going on there, but we use it for information. I don't even really advertise at all that I do what I do. I mean, people know it because we'll talk about it, but what I don't like to do is see folks, especially in the years that I've been doing this, to see folks not have the right information and do things based on what they're seeing kind of in the general population of things and making mistakes. And I don't want people to do that. So I'm just trying to give information. So that's one thing.
I think your voice and your presence in a group, like when I joined that group, I think there were maybe 1,500 people in the group. And then it has exploded. I think it's over 11,000 people.
It's almost 12 now, yeah.
And I think the way that the industry is working right now is you have a lot of new guys and a lot of new contractors, a lot of people, just more courts, and people are starting to think maybe I could do this myself. So you've been both for contractors and for homeowners, especially, to just say, hey guys, let's pump the brakes on everybody thinking this is super easy, and let's at least get you the right information. So as I was getting started, I was so grateful to just be able to see what questions customers were asking, and not just asking each other. The fact that you're leading that group is so helpful for both the contractor and the homeowner. So
I'm mindful on there that things are not the same everywhere, and I get that.
Yes.
Construction practices are different in areas.
Right.
However, there's some universal truths to court building, and there's some things that you can always at least understand and know options. And I get that it's not best for everybody. Some people think that I am trying to push only one way. I do try to push the way that I believe is best. Of course, that's what I'm going to do because that's what I believe. But there are other ways that can be done, and I just want people to have information. So
yeah, totally. Well, we've got a lot of new guys, or guys that are thinking about starting surfacing businesses, maybe even jumping to court building businesses, kind of like you're running. So I'd love to hear just a little bit of your story. I know you didn't take my path. You didn't start as a court surfacer yourself, but maybe just, a couple minutes on your story. How did you get here? And then I'd love to dig into, what you're seeing. We're riding this pickleball wave right now, a lot of us. And I want to get your take on how long is this wave going to be rideable?
Totally. Very good question. So I have a little bit of a different path to this business. I have been building courts for 20 years. But I didn't immediately start that. Went to college, got a degree, then went into a family business and worked for 10 years in a family business that I felt very unfulfilled in. It was unfortunate that I felt that way, but I did. And so the unique part of my journey was that I was a customer of a local court builder and had a
nice.
court built for me and my family. Of course, when I first had it built, my only son at the time was 1, and I told my wife the court was for him. It had nothing to do with him. It was for me.
Right,
I wanted it. He was 1 year old. He didn't play. And so now he's 20, almost 26 now. So I became interested in the business because I loved sports growing up, always played, really got to know the folks that built my court back in the day. And it was a sport court, which is a little bit different than what we're going to talk about mostly here with the acrylic side.
Sure.
But court building is court building, and the tenets of it are the same.
Right.
So I got into that kind of by coincidence, really, because it wasn't my intent. I was looking to do something else and ended up getting to that business through a relationship, and then just kind of learned from literally the very bottom of how do you sell a court? How do people go about getting one? What are they asking for? What do they do? And just doing a lot of just sweat equity in it, and for the first several years, it was very like, wow, you really have to get out there and you really have to present yourself because you don't have anything that you can show people that you've done.
Right.
That's
That's an inflection point right off the bat that you got to figure out how to push through. No doubt.
You do.
Yeah.
And I will say this, one advantage that I had, and I absolutely will admit this, that going to the Sport Court Network, which the Sport Court, especially back then, was a really, solid name in the industry, that led to some credibility that was kind of instant. I used the fact that I was a court owner as well. So the questions that they were asking are the questions that I was asking. And so I kind of had that kind of both sides of it, but still, you still can't point to something you've done if you just pretty much start, so you have to kind of build it slowly and methodically, and you have to really care about the clients and what you're doing.
That's great. So then, real quick on CourTex. So you told me before we hit record that you guys have 5 crews running right now. So talk a little bit about like how you've scaled from when you started.
Sure.
Like, what was the state of the business when you joined, and how have you guys grown that?
Yeah. So CourTex is a little bit of a combination of my group at the company I was at and the CourTex group that was in place.
Okay.
The owner of CourTex, Weston Reddy, is a really, really smart businessman who really cares about his clients. He really cares about his work, and he cares about the people that work with him. And so the thing that he's done really well is to have a reach that people know that we're there. One thing that we struggle with, I'm on a tangent here, but one thing we struggle with is that we do a lot of commercial and sometimes larger projects. So the residential folks think that's all that we do. And that's so far from the truth. In fact, the backyard stuff, the residential stuff is the bread and butter of what we do, the stuff that we really like the most. Yeah. And so that's that. So at CourTex, we've kind of grown over time to kind of handle the number of locations. And we really have an Austin, San Antonio, and Dallas kind of location. Okay. And so those are 3 main cities and main corridor that we hit. But then with that many crews, we have to do a lot of work to keep everybody busy.
How do you structure your different crews? So if you have 5, do you have like 1 or 2 that are like kind of their lane that they run in is the residential, and then you've got, or does everybody do everything? How do you guys think about your crews that way?
That's a great question. The leads of each crew kind of have their own abilities and personalities, and we kind of have to mix and match.
Okay.
It is true that some excel maybe in one area, maybe residential, or one in commercial better. But with the variables of court surfacing, as you guys will find out or know, you can't always stick to those. So you have to be extremely flexible when it comes to where you put guys. So we kind of cross-train in every way that we can, so the guys can do everything.
When you never know if you're going to get a slew of residentials in a row or a slew of high school courts in a row. So you definitely have to. You have a little bit of control. Sure. At your guys' level, you probably have a little bit of control on how to schedule and how to make that work. But you don't always know.
Our board it's controlled chaos is what it is, because aside from the curing times and the schedules and the deadlines, you have the weather and the personal issues and everything that goes into that. And where we surface and build just about all year. Not quite. Okay. The winters in Texas are kind of mild and minor, and There are some winters where it doesn't affect a whole lot at all. No, a little bit for sure, but not like 4 months out of the year like in many places.
Right.
So
That's
it
a
is
huge
hard.
advantage. Yes, we're here in
Yeah, it is.
Cincinnati, and yeah, we have a true 4-month minimum winter
Yeah,
of off
yeah.
season. So yeah, that's great. But we do get a break. You get a little bit less of a break.
Not having a break is sometimes a very taxing and challenging thing. It really
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
No doubt. Okay, that's great. All right, so thanks for sharing some of that. So it's really good to know like the size of your region that you're really focusing in these 3 cities, and then how much five crews can cover. Because I think when you're starting a surfacing business, you're like, all right, I could go just one crew and we could just crank out residentials all day long. And then there's like, I want to scale. And then there's like, then you're talking about warehouse space, and there is a point at which, that can be, it starts to be counterproductive, but it sounds like you guys have kind of cracked the code on that. So.
It's true. You have to have not only the thought of the space and the material ordering and all the stuff that comes with that, you have to make sure that you maintain quality, because the number one thing that'll hurt you instantly in this business is your quality starts to go down. It will then just fester, it'll continue, it'll grow. And even if you get on top of it and you care, which you do, you still have to make sure that quality is number one, and that the guys that are working in those situations away from places have to be on top of things, for sure.
No doubt. That's so good. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what you're seeing in our industry right now. So, you've got this huge pickleball boom, and that's why if people are listening to this episode, they're they're either just really interested in pickleball in general, or they're thinking about starting this as a business. What are you seeing? Like a lot of people are like, man, you picked a good time to start a pickleball court business. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I did. And also like, and I usually just say, we're riding the wave, and I'm curious. And a lot of our guys are curious, especially those that are starting at this point. Right now we're recording at the end of March in 2025, how long is this bubble going to pop at some point? Or that's what everybody starts to ask me. Are the courts is pickleball going to go away, kind of like racquetball, or is it like cornhole? I get all these crazy questions, but what's your, what are you thinking?
Okay. So having been in it 20 years, I've seen a lot of changes and things that happen in the court building market. And obviously the pickleball explosion is unique and something that not a whole lot of court builders have seen happen, unless you've been in it like a long, long time. And there's been some other things. So here's my take on that whole kind of explosion. First of all, if you're a client and you want to do a court, if you hire somebody, and I'm not trying to be critical, I'm just being factual here.
Sure.
If you hire somebody with the word pickleball in their name, you can be sure that they're a new contractor. Now, I'm not saying that a new contractor can't do excellent. What I'm saying is that if they're named pickleball, then they are getting into it at this time, trying to somewhat ride this wave. Maybe not. Maybe just wanted to build courts and it coincided with that. That's fine as well.
Sure.
But, at CourTex, we're court builders. And it's funny when people say, do you build just pickleball courts? Not even close. I mean, everything. It happens to be that a big chunk of what we do right now is pickleball, which is great.
That's where the demand is,
It is. And I think the demand will continue, especially it doesn't take a genius to see that it is catching on to a point that people they're seeing it more than just a cornhole activity. It's a life sport for people.
Right.
And there's a lot of folks that prefer, building them at home. They prefer going to places where they need to be built and congregate. There's a lot of need. Now, will there be saturation? I'm sure there will. Of course there will be. And that is more the reason why, as a court building company, you have to make sure folks know that you're in it for the long haul. You're not a niche only. You're a court builder.
Yeah.
You can do it all and you understand it all. And so that's the thing that I've seen, is that a lot of folks getting into it today, they see the pickleball side and they rush into it. And I mean, there's a lot of crossover from different occupations that they assume, oh, this is easy. Oh,
right. I'm a asphalt, I'm a driveway sealer, or I'm a epoxy floor garage guy.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. I'll just add this little service. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and the hard part about that is that in 99% of the time, they're not doing it correctly at all. And they're doing it in an inferior way that gives the whole kind of industry kind of, it brings it down a little bit. Like, oh, that's all it is? Well, why is it just that? I can do
Sure.
that. So
Yeah, that's good. Well,
that's
let's get into the specifics a little bit. So in the Facebook group, you're seeing, you're having customers or, people that are thinking, I want to build a court in my backyard, or I want to,
Sure.
this is happening at our HOA. I want to help I want to help the board members at my HOA go about this the right way. And then you've got, so that's the planning side. So you're really helpful on that. And we're going to do another talk on the differences between all this subsurfaces, right? Your asphalt, your reinforced concrete, post tension. But then you've got all these people that have just had their courts surfaced, and maybe they've had them surfaced by some of these new guys. And so for me, as we're helping coach these new guys, I want them to hear, as they're either considering getting started or they've already started, what are some of the things that you're seeing, the most common mistakes, or where are these new guys really missing the mark, where they honestly just need to figure out how to get access to some mentors that can kind of disseminate all this wisdom, or they just need to keep making mistakes until they figure it out and they can, get to where you're at and say, I've been doing this for 20 years and I know all the problems. What are the problems that you're seeing?
So that's a great point. And what happens is if you start making a lot of mistakes, yes, you learn from them. The problem is, can you recover from them? Because if you make a lot of mistakes early on, it's very difficult to hit on the reputation. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the biggest mistake, and without getting too specific in the actual mistake, is not preparing properly when they go into court building or even surfacing, and not asking the right questions and making sure things are done the right way.
Sure.
And if it's pretty simple. I mean, aside from the groups like that we're on with the Facebook group or even just simple internet knowledge, it is very, very easy to find some of the things that are very, very important when it comes to proper court construction. And I don't mean just how it's going to look on day one. It's how it's going to look on day 600, and how it's going to last, and how it's going to operate, how it's going to work, and all that stuff. So we see a lot of people cutting corners, missing the boat on the most important details that have basically been around this court building 101. So that rushing into it and going, okay, I can do this. That's no problem. I've been doing garage flooring for a long time. It's got to be the same thing.
Right.
And when you realize it's very different.
I don't need that acrylic resurfacer. Like we just put paint down. Yeah. It'll look great.
Fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, and that's another thing that is very unique to this pickleball world. Okay. Is that you never had in the basketball, and when I say basketball and tennis world, when it comes to acrylic, you never had those folks thinking, I can just go grab a bucket from Home Depot and I just go paint my concrete, and that's a court.
Yes.
People never thought that then. Very few did. But now everybody thinks, oh, it's just paint. I've got a deck that's painted. I just go paint a deck. It's an athletic
I'll just watch
surface.
a YouTube video real quick and I'll be good.
Yeah. It's an athletic surface. You've got to be careful with how it plays in the weather. That's another thing. The outdoor court construction world is very, very different from the indoor court construction world. And so
more variables.
Some of those things, so many variables. Some of those things that people think are not important or are much more important than they realize. And you don't find out till it's too late sometimes. We're rebuilding or redoing people's mistakes like a lot. And
we're running into a lot of that. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so you think pickleball, just to go back to our previous point, you think pickleball is here to stay. Like if you're serious about being in it for the long haul, like we're saying, then you don't have to. What I'm hearing you say is we're not worried about the pickleball court bubble popping in 2 years from now. And what I usually tell people is, look, for better or worse, I know you're real into post tension, and that's going to be a much stronger and longer lasting subsurface solution. But here in Cincinnati in the Midwest, we've got asphalt cracks, reinforced concrete cracks, all the time. So that, while we hate that for our customers, it's not bad for business. You're going to have to, and even for you guys, you're going to have to resurface at some point. So
there's no doubt. And just because a court builder wants to have the court as best as it can be, we don't always get that wish. And sometimes we have absolutely no say or no choice. And in the future, there is going to be a lot of not just fixing improper courts, but just maintaining ones that were built the right way that just are out of their lifespan.
Sure.
It's possible that people can get what they want from a lesser quality material. And we can talk about how in certain areas, the asphalt versus the post tension and the concrete versus asphalt question, all that, we can talk about that. But you're right, it's going to be around. And I do believe, the bottom line is there will be saturation to a point. And there will be a point at which you just don't have the same demand for people that want to have backyard courts, But I think we're a long way from that, because it has the opportunity for people to be active as a family in something that they never really thought they would do
Every
as a
age can
family.
play. It's so
Every
much
age,
easier to learn. It is
for sure.
a unicorn of a sport, and I think that's,
It is.
all of the fact that it makes sense for so many people for more than one reason is super helpful for us on the business side. And just as, I play pickleball all the time, so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
great from a community standpoint too.
For sure.
That's
Well,
great.
that's another thing that I played college tennis, and I switched over from tennis to pickleball.
Same. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I play a lot of pickleball, and really I do love it. I do enjoy it. But what I really like is that I understand what the players are seeing and
Yeah.
experiencing. I
Right.
understand sizing and spacing and divider fencing and things that a lot of court builders that aren't into the sports, they have a little bit of a disadvantage. They can kind of ask questions, but they don't really have that same understanding. And
Yes.
I like to play with folks to enjoy just camaraderie and playing, but I like to also know what they think about certain services, what they don't
Right.
understand. It's
Use
amazing
their
how
brain a little
little,
bit. Yeah.
the players that play that may even be unbelievably good sometimes have no concept of what they're playing on. They have no
Right.
concept of what it takes to get to that. And so
Yes.
I learn a lot from them. I really do.
That's so good. All right, last question for this one, Brent. So let's talk really quickly about paddle. So,
Okay.
we've got pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. Paddle is the fastest growing sport in the world.
Isn't
So and it's coming. So I'm
is.
curious. The thing that I see with paddle is that it is a little bit more of a higher class sport, in the sense that I think it's going to be harder to put one. Now, if you have the money to put a solid fence, lighting, post tension concrete court in your backyard, you can probably afford a paddle court. But I think paddle courts are going to be probably a little bit more expensive, a little bit higher end of a product in general. So how should we think about, this next phase? If you're a forward, because in business, you always want to be thinking about what's next. So where are you seeing paddle? How is CourTex? Are you guys doing paddle courts currently? How are you thinking about this particular part of the court building world?
Sure. Maybe because our proximity to Mexico and Florida, we call them Padel here.
Oh yeah,
But
there
I
you go.
understand that paddle
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
thing. So Padel courts, paddle, either way.
yeah,
We're absolutely seeing an influx of people wanting to play Padel and do Padel courts.
yeah.
We at CourTex actually just started doing them. I've been doing a few. They're very challenging initially because it takes a lot more detail and different structure
Right.
than regular courts. We all know that.
Yeah.
But I do feel they're going to grow both in the residential and the commercial, probably more so in the commercial because that barrier for entry is a little larger.
Sure.
It's a little easier to have a basic pickleball court than it is to have a basic Padel. The cost structure is significantly different.
Yeah.
I think it's important. The most important part of this, I think it's important to be able to do just about anything in the recreation court kind of world that anybody can do, and have that in the tool belt. Because if somebody wants, we've got some folks that want a pickleball court, but then they want a Padel as well. You kind of want both.
Yeah.
And for me, like having been a tennis player, and I played a lot of racquetball. I just played Padel for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and it's really fun.
Yeah,
And
it looks so
and
fun. I haven't actually played
it
yet,
is.
but man, watching highlights on YouTube, running out the
Yeah.
door.
Well, that kind of stuff is, you got to be advanced, and it takes a while. But the reality is, it's a great workout, and it's a lot of fun, and it's different than pickleball. It's different than tennis. It's different than racquetball, but it's got some of a mix of all that. And so it is a lot of fun. And I do think that there'll be more and more as we go on. I just don't know if it's ever going to reach that, a bunch of folks have Padel courts in their backyard.
Yeah, but the scale, it seems like there's a scale problem, because you have, for the courts themselves, I can't quite picture, as fun as the sport looks, it looks like it takes a little bit more skill than pickleball to get good.
Yes,
and then I can't quite picture, we did 27 pickleball courts in one location last summer. I can't picture 20, like there being enough demand to do, more than 6 to 8 Padel courts in a park somewhere. So,
well, I think it's because, like you said, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. I think that kind of cultish attitude that the pickleball crew has
Yeah.
gained, I think the Padel people have that as well.
Yes.
And the groups they get on and they chat about it, and it's their passion. And I think that's going to continue to grow. But it's always going to be, I think, in my opinion, less of a number because, again, it's a little bit more of a higher costing sport to play.
Yes.
And of course to build. And so it's just a little bit different. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. And I think it's something that is not going to go away for sure.
Right. That's fair. Awesome, Brent. Well, we'll cut this one off here. This has been so good. Thanks for sharing some of your story. It's really good to hear you talk about, where the court industry is at. And then that was a personal question of mine. Like, where are you seeing Padel, paddle? Where's that going? So cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk more about that. That's great.
Awesome.
Any last thoughts for our guys that are just getting started? That was one other thing I wanted to sneak in here. As you're looking at this Facebook group, what watch outs or what, just real quick, any encouragements for these guys that, our guys are trying to start something for their family.
Sure.
I certainly don't want to paint this as, hey, everything's like, rosy. It's going to be amazing and you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to make your customers super happy.
Right.
What, any quick watch outs before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important is to not get discouraged and to always be passionate about what you're providing, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very difficult with their demands, with their desires, with their wants and needs. And it's hard when you know the right answers, but the client doesn't always want to hear those. And they may have their own answers, which their answers that they want is the right answer for them. But you have to decide what's most important. The integrity of what you're doing. We do things a certain way so that we know we can always have quality.
Yes.
And we don't compromise on that. When we compromise, it's only on maybe sides on certain things or different amenities, but not the core construction of the court, because we don't want to have like a low-end version that's going to break down for somebody. We want it to last. And so I think it's really important to focus on quality, to focus on people, to make sure you're passionate about it.
So good. Yeah. No, we don't want to be, putting coatings down 10 days into the concrete curing because the customer wants it fast. Even if they agree not to, even if they waive the warranty, like we don't want to cut corners and ways like that. So, so good. Sure. Awesome, Brent. Super appreciate you, man.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, guys, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to learn more about Court Pro coaching or discover what a season of coaching might look like for you, visit courtprocoaching.com. We'll see you for the next episode.